You just heard Spit Out the Bone from Metallica. This is the Rock and Metal Podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jason. And that was a new Metallica song. Apparently...
It's been the first in, 8 years or something?
Yeah, first in 8 years. They have a new album out. I don't know if you've heard.
Probably not. It's
probably. Yeah,
it barely cracked the Billboard 200.
I was going to say, it's real spoilery kind of information out here.
But if you're thinking, why the fuck are you talking about Metallica? Well, it's not just a Metallica show. This is the state of the Big Four in 2016 and
part one, because we've got a kind of weird concept that we're going to be going with. We'll talk more about the second concept a little bit later, but we decided it was kind of an odd year in that, odd year in like odd 14 or 15 months whenever that Slayer Repentless came out, that all four of the Big Four put out a record, really like the last...
Within a year of each other.
Yeah, really, about a year, you know. In Metallica, of course, those are the last to the dance more recently. Officially coming out around Thanksgiving, I think, is when it finally, like, the gem actually kind of was released. But then there were singles that were being released from, like, late August on. You know, Hardwired, I think, was, like, premiered...
Yeah, that was
beginning of school for me, like late August, early September, and then
was it that long ago?
I think so, because I noticed like at least you could hear it on like iTunes. I don't know if the video was actually like premiered yet or anything, but because it was like Hardwired, and then I think Atlas Rise was like put out at a certain point, Moth into Flame, and maybe Halo on Fire. Are those the four that were put out? Maybe Halo on Fire. I'm thinking was.
I don't know, because it was. For like a couple weeks, they're putting out one a day, or something for every single video off the.
But I'm trying to think of what I actually heard some of these songs like on the radio first before I like heard them really anywhere else, because I don't have time. I'm not sitting at home like on computers ever. Like I don't get to like troll around very much and like kind of see what's like poking around out there. That's why like I forget like shit has like come out, and you'll be like, hey, have you heard the new? I'm like, oh really? Like didn't even know. You're like. You haven't listened to the like new blah 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 video that's been put out? And like, like I don't go to Blabbermouth or Decibel's websites. I never. It's just like not in my wheelhouse. Sometimes I just usually wait for you or Chris to kind of tell me what's going on, or I read in Decibel. Like if it's like, you know, then I'm like aware that something's kind of coming out.
Sure.
Know?
Yeah, I think I don't remember exactly where I heard it, but it was the first time in a long time I was pleasantly surprised that things that I thought were long gone forever.
Sure.
They came back to, at least for Metallica, in a little bit. Not as much as you could hope for them to bring it back, but enough to made me a little excited to go through and hear the whole record. And
I was, of course...
I mean, it's like the big band. Mm-hmm. Can they ever... Because it's not it's not a thing that never happens anymore, especially in extreme shit. Like, Paradise Lost did Host, and then they just did Plague Within last year before.
Sure, yeah.
Complete polar opposite, like coming back to your form, your original, like kind of where you're at, that really blew you up is not that unheard of anymore.
No, absolutely not. But I think...
that's a different level.
I think with Metallica, you know, we were having this chat like earlier, we were talking, because when we're recording this, it's, you know, within the week that Rogue One kind of came out. But I would sort of say what Metallica is to like rock and roll or metal or hard rock or whatever you want to call it. But I think they're like the biggest like hard rock, almost rock and roll band like in existence today. I mean, I think you can make some arguments like, you know, Red Hot Chili Peppers, U2, Metallica, Foo Fighters. They're kind of all in that like conversation maybe in terms, you know, Foo Fighters only because they're more consistent. They're not as like monumental as any of those other three. But I think like Metallica and like their really sullied, weird reputation is similar to like how people view like the Star Wars stuff. There's like this nostalgic period of this original thing, and then things got very muddled in the 90s and early 2000s, and like people are like relieved and wanting it to go back to the glory days, but they're also hesitant to admit that maybe it's there. So like when I first was told about like these new Metallica songs, a guy I teach with was like, hey, have you heard the new Metallica? It's actually not too bad. And I'm always like, yeah, right. Okay. You know, like, I'm sure like there's a good song.
Cyanide!
Because I didn't mind Death Magnetic. I didn't love it. Like, I have a gem of it. I think I got it used for like, you know, $5 or something, and was like, okay, whatever.
I mean, I had a way higher expectation of that just because Rick Rubin was producing it.
Yeah.
And he's got this reputation of being able to pull out
Well,
you know,
he could turd polish stuff and really resurrect people, or at least get people to like tap into like something that
like what they got them going from the get go, like thrash music, not fucking Lou Reed records or whatever you're doing.
Although they did the Lou Reed stuff after, so and that was more of like a favorite of Lou Reed, which whatever, that's cool. Like I don't fault him for that. Like I think people that think that's a Metallica record are just kind of like looking for like.
Does it even have Metallica on it?
I think it's
just
marketed
called
as
Lulu,
Lou Reed.
isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, so
I mean, if you were in their position and Lou Reed said, "Hey, you want to do a record?" Who's going to say no?
That's fucking cool. That's is like
punk rock, Velvet Underground
and
solo stuff. That's cool.
You know, so I think like this album is like certainly more inspired and very obviously, you know, connect it back to their roots more than anything they've done since the Black Album, and really in some ways, it's probably more connected to their roots than even the Black Album is. I mean, because the Black Album in a strange sense was like an attempt to really like kind of step out from like the limelight of like the progressive kind of thrash that Master of Puppets and Injustice for All were doing, and really like strip the songs down to like a simple kind of groove to add like that bottom end kind of heaviness. And I think Bob Rock did a really good job of doing that stuff.
Get the production they always wanted.
Yeah, they want it to sound as like heavy as they were live in the studio, which is cool. And but I think in terms of really like drawing a line through like Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets and Injustice for All, as well as, you know, the Load, Reload, Black Album, like this album kind of does all of that more than I think anything that they've done in a long
It's almost
time.
a retrospective record.
Not the greatest hits, but like almost like they're just wearing their kind of influences on their sleeves a little bit. Yeah. And it's to
it seems like there's a little bit of inspiration. Like for Hetfield, as far as I think he's the standout player on
He's the MVP of this whole record.
His vocals are the best I've heard them in 20 years. Yeah. Easily. He's not just doing all the same like warbling kind of stuff that he's been doing for probably since Load, Reload.
Yeah. I mean, Load had some good vocal things. I mean, I think Until It Sleeps is a pretty good like vocal performance for him and stuff. But there's a lot of like shit on back. Load. Yeah.
The snarl is what I missed, and like the slightly lower register, which he comes back in a pretty big way in a lot of this stuff.
And I was saying to Mark that like I've read some stuff where like Hetfield is actually like kind of getting back into like metal a little bit. Like he's into Kvaltertak, and you said Baroness and stuff. So like he's not, you know. The problem with Metallica is they've always, you know, kind of disconnected from reality because they're like insulated into this like celebrity culture in a sort of way. So it's almost as if like people aren't telling them no very often. You know, it's like hard to like edit themselves, and you can even hear that on this record. There's a lot of editing that like didn't happen that should have.
There's being a man who works from home. I listen to YouTube a lot during the day, and they had like 10 to 15 minute like behind the scenes of each song almost. Yeah. Of them going through it, and you can see how Lars is, you know, he might not be the greatest drummer, but he's got a good ear for, in some sense of arrangement. But they do need that producer that can be like, okay guys, like we're getting a little off track here. Why don't we just kill this minute and a half thing that's neat? Yeah. We'll keep it on tape. You can remember it, but does this song really need to be 7.5 minutes long?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I mean, I think like Hardwired, which opens up the whole record, is like one of the shortest songs they've ever written. It might be the shortest song that they've actually ever had. Maybe besides Kill 'Em All. Yeah. You know, like Motor Breath and some of that stuff is like 3 minutes, 3:15. Whiplash is like 4, but it's like 3 minutes and like 10 seconds is what Hardwired is. And, you know, it goes back to that Damage Incorporated and Battery, like that very just like whip you into a kind of a frenzy. And, you know, unfortunately it's a little juvenile with like, you know,
We're so fucked. Out of luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, maybe they're actually mad about the political stuff. It's like, oh, probably not.
Probably not. You know, Cage Rebellion, but that's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
They're old. Like they're allowed to be.
As much as I'm all about free speech and people, you know, expressing themselves however they want, the older you become, and the more you use profanity in like artistic ways, like song lyrics and stuff, it seems more juvenile to me.
It is kind of weird.
Like you couldn't think of a better way to do that than like it really needs to.
Sure. I mean, I think swearing is very powerful when it's used like effectively. Sure. You know, I mean, like I like a good swear from now and then. I think, but it's just.
I don't know how much music I like swearing, unless it's like old 90s rap.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like new rap, you know, like I don't mind like Run the Jewels and Kendrick and some of that stuff because they're doing it for like a language like there's a real evocative language with hip hop because it's all lyric kind of based, you know. But with metal, like, I don't really care. Like, you know, when Accept, like, sings, like, Son of a Bitch, I kind of smile, you know, like, stuff like that, because it's more, like, anthemic.
Fuck you!
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's kind of fun. But, yeah, I guess I don't need to see a bunch of old dudes, like, swearing.
I guess when it really stands out is what kind of...
Well, and we're going to get to the Slayer record later, but, you know, you hear, like, Araya, you know, Araya, like, swear and stuff, and it's kind of like, I'm kind of over this, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean... like stuff like Atlas Rise, you know, I mean, a lot of like new wave of British heavy metal stuff. You know, there's Diamond Head riffs all over the place.
There's
like
harmony again, guitar harmonies. Which when's the last time we heard that?
Yeah, so I mean,
like Injustice, like just in like the intros and outros and Freight Ended Sandy and shit like that. Like we haven't heard in a long time.
Exactly, you know, and I mean, I think that's cool. Like Mark was saying before, that they're wearing their influences kind of on their sleeves, not just of their own catalog, but like the bands that sort of inspired them, kind of back catalog.
What was the track that starts out with the?
It's Diamond Head. It's Confusion. Yeah, okay. Confusion is all kinds of Diamond Head stuff. There was another one that like had a very much a Diamond Head kind of feel. Am I Savage? Like has a lot of Am I Evil? Diamond Head. It's almost like the same kind of like riffing pattern of Am I Evil and stuff like that. So you know, and I'm not saying that that's like gold, but it's at least it's a start of a nucleus of like some good ideas that they're like going back to some of these more melodic kind of passages and twin leads and things like that.
Because that's the stuff that really got me the most. I think I couldn't tell you last time I listened to a Metallica song and I got like goosebumps.
Yeah, no, and I mean
that happened a couple times. Well, even though the songs aren't all great, but there's really great things happening in each song, but in a lot of the songs.
In most of them, yeah. And Mark and I were kind of talking before, and if you really like, if it's a 2-disc thing for those of you that are kind of living on Mars and don't know about this, but you know, in total it adds up to about 80 minutes. So it really could have been put out as like a single disc. I don't really know why.
I'd say a really solid 35 minutes.
Yeah,
if you really cut the fat out of it.
Well, yeah, and I could even make it like 45. I think would be pretty standard. But if you got rid of like Here Comes Revenge, which is like a fine mid-pace early 90s Metallica song, you wouldn't miss it. Am I Savage, and then the Lemmy tribute, which is Murder One. You got rid of those, you'd be down to like a solid 10 songs, which is probably maybe one too many. You could maybe cut one other one.
But also like thematically and tone, it would fit better.
Yeah, I think
because
so.
The whole record starts and ends with a great track.
Yep.
And there's some good stuff peppered, at least the first disc.
I think the first disc is way more consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then luckily it saves itself with the song we open up with, which is Spit Out the Bone. I mean, let's talk about that song real quick before we kind of forget we had played it. I mean, this is it's got an Injustice vibe, throughout it. It's got this cold, like Dyer's Eve kind of like feel to it, mixed with like, I hear a lot of Motor Breath, like Kill 'Em All, like just that really urgent feeling that you hear on like a song like Motor Breath or Whiplash, where it's just like
I can't even think of like what band I'm thinking of that riff sounds like, but it sounds like shit that I came up with when I was 15.
Yeah,
stuff, or like I heard in my head when I was 15. Not that I came up with, but something simple, catchy, straight to the point, and aggressive. Yeah,
and that last couple minutes is like the most inspired stuff that I think they've ever done. Did I put it? Or not ever, sorry, that they've done in like 20, 25 years. You know?
I had... it doesn't really matter. We just heard the whole thing, but toward the end of it, right before the last chorus, I think, is where it really kicks in with that the guitar harmonies. Mm-hmm. I just can't believe how much I miss that stuff.
Yeah,
and how good they are. It was like, did they ever do that before? I'm like, oh yeah, it's all over the place.
It's all over. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's been so buried for so many years, but
that might be. I can't remember if that's a song that has like a very much like the title track, "Ride the Lightning" kind of thing. That might be more Moth and a Flame that I'm kind of thinking of, where it's almost like this just really great, like you said, twin harmony kind of thing kind of going
that's
on.
In that song as well. There's parts of that song I don't care for as much, but there's some great guitar harmonies.
The beginning of Moth and a Flame is like awesome. Just great. And I even said
I don't even mind the chorus, which is kind of more modern Metallica, but
for sure. Yeah, to me, the pre-chorus is one of the highlights of that song as well. That's got almost like the In Flames kind of like quality kind of thing to it. The other thing that I think is awesome about Spit Out the Bone is the stuff that I'll always mispronounce his name.
Robert Trujillo?
Trujillo, yes. I think that's... I almost want to say Trujillo, but I...
You got to think Spanish, so the J's...
The rolling, I can't roll my R's and stuff like that.
Rob.
But, what's that?
Just call him Rob.
Rob, yeah, that Rob's doing. he has one of the coolest, like, it's the first bass solo, I think, since Cliff Burton on Orion.
There was one other that I should have wrote down. It wasn't much of a solo, but it was a bass break.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, that Newstead did on Black Album.
Oh, okay.
And I can't think of what song it was. I just watched that Year and a Half of Life of Metallica.
It wasn't like God That Failed or something like that. Like something like Through the Never.
I don't even remember now.
It
But the way the bass is produced on most Metallica records, it sounds just like guitar. It doesn't really sound like bass that much.
And they like at least allow him like that moment, that spotlight where like it's a really cool like bass breakdown. In that song is cool.
Yeah, right. That point right after that is like some of my favorite.
Is where the song kind of takes off. Yeah, absolutely. You know, so I mean, obviously we're not going to go song by song through all of it, but there's some neat stuff that's kind of happening. You know, Rob writes only one song on it. He's got co-writing credits with like the Man Unkind, which kind of has like a cool like Sabbath vibe to it.
It just sounds like
it's very groovy in certain ways. You could tell he played with Infectious Grooves.
They sounded like there was a jam song, like there was sitting around jamming, and that's what they came up with, but it was never refined.
Sure.
Me,
although that's the song I kind of pointed out, like had to me some of the more interesting drumming, because that's the only one of the few times like Lars starts doing like that like hillbilly swing that you hear in like Down and I Hate God that like Jimmy Bauer does and stuff. So, you know, I mean, like I said,
there's a pretty one note drummer on this record.
Yeah, he's probably the weak spot of the album. Supposedly, like with Kirk Hammett, I'm sure you heard this story, but like he had all these riffs and lost his iPhone.
That seems like a little bit of bullshit, because I would still remember some of it.
You'd think, and I'm sure he like remembered some came back, but like it's such a weird story.
There's a thing I saw with Hetfield that said Kirk's riffs were just not there.
They weren't there.
As far as like not up to snuff is what I was assuming you meant by that.
And one of the consistent things that...
But when has he ever been like a real songwriter in Metallica?
Yeah, he really has.
He's the soloist.
Yeah, exactly.
Solo guitar player.
But I think like one of the things that I see as a connecting like line through all of the stuff that we're going to be listening to tonight is it seems like all of the other bands, Megadeth, Anthrax, and Slayer, have all brought in kind of some new blood. And that's kind of helped reinvigorate some of the originators a little bit. And the problem that you have in Metallica is I think James and Lars are such a twin force of like, I don't want to say ego, but I'll use that word for right now.
It's their band.
It's their band, that they're not going to allow anyone else to like kind of, I don't know, even like Robert being kind of a relatively newish member, even though he's been there for almost like 10 years at this point, I feel like, at least.
He's been there since...
did he play in Saint Anger, or was that Newstead?
No, he was on Saint Anger.
Okay, yeah, but
that's when they did Some Kind of Monster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he was there. So, I mean, but this is like, he hasn't really done... He's just kind of like a paid guy that just kind of shows up and does his thing, it seems like.
Yeah, even in interviews, he's very reserved about what he'll say and what he won't.
Sure.
It's like, fuck, if I made that kind of money for that band, I could do my own creative things on the side. Like,
yeah. Play some jazz fusion, whatever the hell he wants to do.
I don't know how him and Hammett deal with those kind of egos.
Yeah.
And I could not work in that kind of situation.
Be tough. Yeah. And I don't...
And Hetfield doesn't seem like he's not as Lars. Overt as Lars is. Like, there's some of those videos he's like right next to Hammett when he's doing his solo. And I was like, no, do more of this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus Christ, you fucking Danish turd, come on.
but it makes me wonder, like, if they brought in like a younger, more hungry soloist, would it reinvigorate?
I don't think they wouldn't give him her the room to do anything.
And that's a real problem. I think that's one of those, you look at this record, you look at all the successes it has, and it's great. There's great moments, and there's certainly inspired moments, but like as a consistent whole,
it falls flat.
I mean, it just doesn't. I'm happy for it. Like, let me put it this way:
I've listened to it probably like 10 times.
Yeah, I'll never say that this isn't a step in the right direction. Is it as far as like everyone wanted it to go? No, but like I'm gonna give a bunch of like older dudes that are millionaires a little bit of credit for at least like getting a little gumption to do some of the stuff that they're gonna do.
I mean, I've listened to Spit Out the Bone probably 20 times.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's the highlight of the record for sure. So we were going to kind of play one more song, and it's a kind of a song that Mark and I were kind of. To me, it's a perfect representation of what's good and bad about this record.
In one song,
kind of. And it's not one of the songs that's been kind of played a lot on the radio and hasn't gotten as much spotlight. And so that's why I thought it'd be kind of fun to pick this one out. It's called Dream No More, and it's the fifth song on the first disc. And a couple things that like come to mind about this song. It's very much has a kind of thing that should not be kind of quality to it. Very like aggressively kind of Sad But True meets kind of Sabbath meets what I say, Alice in Chains Facelift. It's got like all those kind of weird, gloomy, doomy elements sort of happening for it.
Alice in Chains is probably more of the vocal delivery for part of the chorus. But.
Especially during the pre-chorus and the chorus and stuff like that. But you had some issues with the sort of singing style in the verses, right?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. He's pushing, it's more of a modern, I think maybe it's my problem because Metallica was the first, with a lot of people, I mean, it was one of the first really heavy bands that exposed me to all this other stuff, and they're kind of always been this torchbearer. And I think that the Black Album, it hit a point. I mean, there's some really commercial sounding stuff on there, but there's some great
it's a
hard rock, metal. It's still a metal record.
It's still a consistently great record. Yep.
Some stuff on there that you can't, I don't know where you go past that, to be honest. Like, could you even continue that type of thing without being just completely commercial and redundant? So it's like, I don't blame them for trying, but when he doesn't do that stuff in the song, like the Turn to Stone Madness They Say part, is great. He's got the snarls back. It's got just this palm muted chug that I really miss hearing.
It reminds me of like a Ride the Lightning, like Creeping Death, or like it's got like the.
It's a lot of Injustice too because it sounds pissed.
Yeah, angry. Yeah, like Dyer's Eve. We brought it before. Yeah. And
but thick, we haven't heard. Metallica hasn't been known for their great production until, well, some people might think the Black Album sounds like shit, or it might be overblown or whatever.
Sure.
But
I think it's
a good
punchy.
chug.
Yeah.
A chunky riff. And the first 3 records are still a little thin.
Sure.
It's nice to hear it full and thick and.
And I pointed out that the vocals kind of reminded me. I got like a SOG vibe to it, which is like kind of weird, but like
you're much more open to hearing things. I'm so focused on what I think should be there.
Yeah, and I get that, and I guess I was just kind of like, oh, he's trying something different. Like, that's kind of cool. I guess I don't know if I would want every song for him to sing like that, but for like one of the 10 songs or the 12 songs or whatever, like, go for it, try it. But but I think what really got me though is the whole the last 2/3 of the song. Once you get into the solo and then the chorus and because they keep repeating the chorus, and the chorus is the best part. Yeah, and stuff. So,
and if they're talking like lyrically, the record is leaps and bounds above anything they've done in a long, long time. It's not cringeworthy like Cyanide or I can't even think of some of the just awful,
silly stuff. I mean,
like rockabilly car culture shit that I just don't like. Fuel, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah, unfortunately, James, because
he was a great lyricist. Like there was like complexity and like metaphor and
I mean,
how hard is it to do that shit
stuff.
again? Yeah,
I mean about the environment, the planet. I mean, there's like,
that's something that falls out of. I mean,
it was
I
thoughtful.
Guess if you don't have to struggle,
sure,
it's different. But I'm just hard on these guys because they're fucking metal's in their name.
For sure, yeah. And they're always going to have like a much brighter spotlight on them than maybe almost any other metal band. Like they're not going to be. It's like I come back to that Star Wars metaphor. There's always going to be criticism no matter what they do because there's just so many eyes on everything, every move that they ever make.
But at least people still care.
Yeah, and so we're talking about Metallica, so that means something. So kind of curious what you guys think about Dream No More. Because like I said, Mark and I are kind of split on it. There's some brilliant parts and some others. So
what I would like to do if I had more time is I would take it into GarageBand and cut out the stuff I didn't like.
There you go. The Phantom Edit.
Yes, basically. Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of fanaticism this band can muster. So.
And that's where you get that kind of stuff. So, and then from Dream No More from Metallica, it's going to move into our next band, and we kind of as a nice little poke at Dave, put him second after Metallica. So we're spotlighting the new Metallica and then the new Megadeth. Poor Dave. Just so Dave can be a little bit annoyed with it. But we got a pair of really fantastic songs from Dystopia that we'll talk about when we come back. So we'll go Dream No More from Metallica, and then Poisonous Shadows and Conquer or Die from Dystopia from Megadeth.
just endless nights. Nobody's there, nobody cares when you cry. Is it my face you see? Do I haunt you in your sleep? Are your hands and knees when you crawl through your nightmares? When there's no more grace, does your heart start to race? Crawling everywhere in the dark, poison their shadows. How many secrets do you keep inside? How many sins do you have to hide?
Parentibus oboidientes in gras celeste.
That was Conquer or Die, Poisonous Shadows, and then we opened up with Dream No More. So now we move on to Dave.
Number two.
And what Dave has been up to here.
Well, Dave has been up to a lot of things.
He has. And Mark and I were kind of talking about the struggle of how do you evaluate Megadeth with Dave Mustaine's kind of recent, or relatively recent, like the last 10 years, his kind of political, religious conversion change. He's kind of become very right-wingish and kind of nutty.
At least very vocal about it. Because really, like, I don't care what your politics are if you do good stuff, but if it's constantly brought up and you're on, like, Alex Jones and you're saying all this nutball shit, but then all your lyric content has some kind of, like, I understand. It's like George Orwellian, like, I understand the future and how corrupt everything is. Like, you're supporting the corrupt shit.
Yeah. Or
like,
is he, you know,
I
so
don't understand.
like, I don't know. And so I just kind of said, well, you know what, like, we like Burzum too. So, like, if you're able to kind of, I don't know, just
I'll say did.
Separate. Did.
Not contemporary, but yeah.
You know, so it's kind of tough sometimes. So regardless of how you feel, and what's kind of ironic, maybe ironic, is that these lyrics, to me, a lot of the stuff he's singing about on this record are more potent now in a post kind of Trump America.
Yes.
And it's maybe what he originally kind of thought was like a solution. And I think like the lyrics of this album might prove to be more true.
I don't know if he is a Trump supporter, but he's a more conservative.
Yeah, I don't think he was an Obama fan, probably.
No,
so
he's not like Ted Nugent where he just burps his name or anything.
And maybe he's just like a libertarian, and more power to him if that's like,
sure.
You know, if he's just like kind of like hands off, then whatever. I respect that on whatever level, you know. But from a musical standpoint, this is a very inspired record.
Surprisingly, I had not listened to this until about 2 weeks ago, and this has been out almost a year, I think.
Yeah,
and it came out in February or something, or March or May or.
And when we were talking about this, I kind of was talking this up, and I think Mark at first was like, "Oh, okay," like, you know, like we were all in agreement. I think between the two of us that like Anthrax was maybe the best of these releases.
I don't know if that's true now.
Really?
Yeah.
You would say this is pretty
I think
close?
this is better.
Yeah. So I think this...
and this is coming from me, a person who... The only Megadeth record I love is Rust in Peace.
Yeah.
I don't really give a shit about any of the other back catalog.
Yeah, I'm a Megadeth apologist a little bit more, and we'll get into that maybe in part 2 a little bit, but... I mean, I think this is an incredible record.
It's, I think a lot of, I didn't really read a whole lot of reviews, to be honest, about this, like where it sits with people.
It's
up for a Grammy.
I can say this on Metal Archives, which I just out of curiosity to pick, or to get a little peek at it today, just before I came over. It's at 88%, which that's on Metal Archives. They're usually they're pretty snarky. Yeah. So. And I think Repentless from Slayer is like 48%. Like, they're really
understandable.
Hard on
but if you think, like, what has Megadeth done in the last 16 years that has really been...
Endgame is the only record I think most people consider since Euthanasia is like a really pretty good record.
Was Endgame the one that had, like, Return to Hangar and stuff on it, or that...
I think so.
Or was that United Abominations?
No, I think it was that one. Okay. And so it was...
Because, like, they were trying to come back
they were, like, kind of
to
trying to get... But I didn't get as into Endgame as I am with Dystopia. Like, for some reason, this works to me. I don't know.
It sounds... it's a classic band trying to sound modern, but it works. Mm-hmm. They're not, like, reaching and trying... Like, they don't... By being modern, they're not, like, stripping away what their identity was or anything.
Sure.
If anything, it makes it more cohesive, and out of all the records we're going to talk about, I think this one and, well, Anthrax as well.
I think those are both. But I think this
cohesive. One seems like a very, very focused record.
Can I make this statement? Can I make this statement and see if you agree with me? I think this is the best thrash record of the 4 we're listening to, but I think maybe history might prove that the Anthrax record is like a great classic heavy metal record.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it leans more toward
like
that.
I think that's going to fit more, and I'll talk more about this like with the Defenders of Faith, or like I said, Last in Line from Dio, or something that just has this like timeless quality to it. And whereas like Dystopia is more like thrash focused, obviously, you know.
Yeah, and I think the Anthrax is definitely more of a. It falls. I mean, there's definitely thrash elements, but it kind of surpasses it.
It's kind of doing its own. It's like looking beyond thrash almost, but in like a natural way. And we'll get to why Anthrax is able to do that.
Sorry, Dave, for cutting off part of your explanation here.
Poor Dave, just sold short. But to get to the 2 songs we listened to, kind of what works for him, you know, Poisonous Shadows. is to me, it's like the best mid-pace song on the whole record. It's got some really kind of cool like orchestral like keyboard kind of choral parts that are kind of mixed in like kind of the beginning. I point out it kind of reminded me of the theme song to Orphan Black for some reason, which Mark isn't really familiar with, but that was like a vibe I got. Very Arabian kind of riffing in it, which is cool.
They've always kind of had a little bit like Eastern scale stuff.
For sure. They do in like
cool.
Holy Wars and different things like that. The chorus is really incredible. The solo work on this record. I mean,
it's funny with somebody who has such vocal limitations as Mustaine. This is like it's probably his most consistent. He doesn't like reach too far.
Yeah, he's like not trying to push beyond his abilities.
But he's also like layering stuff. He's making up for like not being able to have a huge range. The vocal harmonies and the hooks and choruses are great.
Yeah,
they're really good.
And it's the same guy that produced Rust in Peace did this record.
He's like
right?
he engineered Rust in Peace.
Engineered, yeah. So it's like it's kind of cool to like bring it back to
there's
like
a little bit
moment.
of that guitar right between the eyes kind of.
Oh, it punches you right in the face for sure. And you heard that in Conquer or Die, which was the instrumental, which you know, we should probably talk about the other guitar player, which is Kiko Loureiro,
I think.
Yeah, from Ingra, a Brazilian kind of power speed metal. Speed thrash.
I have not
kind
listened
of thing.
to them in 20 years. But.
I know a little bit about Ingra, not a lot. They're kind of like a Brazilian Blind Guardian, just not as like good, I guess. So if you like Halloween,
guy's a great guitar
stuff
player,
like that, it's right in that. And honestly, like you can hear some Blind Guardian-esque, like Halloween-esque, like German speed metal kind of stuff in like Conquer or Die, you know, like during the instrumental and stuff like that. I even said like that instrumental, you get a little like Hocus Pocus from Focus kind of like at the very end there. But and then the other guy is Chris Adler from Lamb of God, which I was
kind of underwhelmed with his performance, but
I liked him on Poisonous Shadows. I think that's one of his better things, you know.
It's just I don't know, and I'm not familiar enough with Lamb of God, so I don't know if this is kind of what he sounds like.
I think so. I know like songs by them, but I don't know albums.
It's just double bass focused. There's not a whole lot of like tom work. It's just snare, double bass. Cymbals are kind of, I don't know. They're not really out there much.
Yeah.
They're
and
very,
you said
like,
you've heard some live versions of some of this stuff with the guy from Soilwork.
I think it sounds
great.
Much more interesting. There's more air to it. It's not just like you're listening to it in really dense headphones or something. But
yeah, so that would be cool. Like maybe on the next record, if they keep Kiko and then bring in the guy from Soilwork.
Mustaine's had nothing but good stuff to say about him. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But I think
he says that about every other guitar.
That's true.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, hey, Dave stuck around, right? Ellefson. So
well, he almost got canned.
That's true.
Last time too.
That's true. But there's a lot of like cool moments all over this record. The title track Dystopia has a lot of like Hangar 18 kind of things going on with it, especially at the end.
It's got a good vocal hook.
Yeah, it's there's good like I said, like a power metal kind of a Halloween element in that stuff. There's Post American World, which is a song we were kind of debating playing. Lyrics are kind of like very like nationalistic kind of which is right up Dave's wheelhouse at this point. But a lot of like Symphony of Destruction, kind of Countdown for Extinction kind of riffs kind of happening on it.
Yeah.
A lot of Mike Amott, like Arch Enemy-esque solo work kind of on the record.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is cool. Like, there's worse people you could bring.
Well, Arch Enemy's been on for almost 20 years
now.
Yeah,
they're like a weird institution. So, and I wonder if like that's just accidental or if they're just kind of drawing from like the same influences and always have.
Well, the funny thing is that Wolf Hoffman from Accept, that's I think where Michael Mott got a lot of his solo work.
So like
the weird, you kind of like holding it out almost too long kind of thing. Just listening to a lot more Accept in the last like 5 or 6 years, that makes sense. A lot of that. So, but it's another German thing
for sure. And then you go like, and to me, even though I keep saying Angra's like German, like they have like a German quality to them because I think that was where their influences were, even though they're Brazilian. I feel like they're like
Sepultura sounded like Old Destruction. Sodom.
That's true, yeah. So
like they kind of embrace more of that the Teutonic terror,
Yeah. So maybe that that's I don't like I said I don't know a lot about Angra, but that's where I feel like their influences. Whenever I've encountered Angra, they sounded like a Blind Guardian.
I can't even tell you what they sound like at all at this point.
So again, there's some really really great. Threat is Real. The opening track is fantastic. Lion in State. Fatal Illusion has a lot of like Wake Up Dead, Peace Cells kind of elements to it, so like I said, from start to finish, this or the Anthrax record that we'll talk about a little bit later is definitely like the better of the two. If you're gonna buy two of the big 4 releases, those
Yeah.
are probably the 2 to get from start to finish, you know. And we're going to end with Bullet to the Brain, which will be the next song that we sort of get into here. And that one kind of has a new wave British heavy metal kind of thing going on with it, some kind of Maiden-esque stuff.
A lot of angel witchy things we noticed in this record.
For sure. And then we'll start to talk real briefly about the Slayer, and we can kind of get into it a little bit more after, because, well, we're going to kind of transition from Slayer right to Anthrax here. Mm-hmm. But I guess, you know, what are your thoughts on the Repentless record?
At first, I could not give a shit about it. I heard the title track, and I was like...
Title track's kind of just like a run through. I feel like Hanneman's kind of like an ode to like some of Jeff Hanneman's like bright spots. There's kind of like Spirit and Black riffs. And
to be honest, I mean, I think the Slayer worked because of Hanneman and King's
that dynamic,
the push and pull they had. Like just one, it's kind of lacking a little bit. Mm-hmm. And this thing was all written by Carey, except for like a co-writing credit for Piano Wire.
Yeah, which we're gonna play coming up
by Hanneman, but. There's of course lots of documentaries everywhere, but there's an hour-long thing about the writing of Repentless and how Carey was saying that he was trying to... Jeff always wrote the gloomy stuff, and he was trying to...
And he tries to emulate it with, like, When the Stillness Comes. It's kind of an ode to, like, Seasons of the Abyss or Spill the Blood, kind of like those type of Dead Skin Mask
almost exactly
kind of
the same...
And it's fine. Like I appreciate the sentiment, but like it's not... It's lacking, like, a little bit of the soul that I think Jeff kind of brought to it, you know? And I mean, I think a lot of the record actually harkens back to like God Hates Us All, like with some of like the Tom's kind of lackluster vocal performances.
It's kind of uninspired. I don't think Tom really. He co-wrote one song lyrically.
Okay.
But a lot of Carey's hit and miss lyrically. Sometimes he's great. Sometimes it's shit.
And the problem you have with Carey is his ego, and he doesn't have that counterweight to like bring him like into kind of some type of balance the way Jeff I think did and challenged him a bit.
I think Hanneman did that through, at least this is just anecdotally or from what I witnessed in videos and interviews and stuff, that Carey was the big personality and he just immensely respected Jeff.
Yeah.
So he would listen to what he had to say. It wasn't like Jeff was like, Carey, hang on a minute here. This is crazy. I think
it was like a reverence almost.
Yeah,
for him.
I think he just had incredible respect. So.
And so I guess like my thing with this record is I'm hoping that Carey kind of works some of that out and then allows for, like, to me, the MVP of this whole record is Gary Holt from Exodus. He's incredible. And we're going to listen to Piano Wire and You Against You.
Have you seen Gary on guitar?
I have. Yep.
And it's tight?
It's good. Yeah. I've seen him. I saw him the Hanneman tribute tour like right after Jeff died when Holt was on stage playing with them and stuff. And I think we actually saw Holt when Jeff got sick. I think there was 2 times I've seen Holt with Slayer. Yeah. And so I don't think you went to that last one I went to after Jeff died. But
I was also in my phase where I was like, well, fuck, I don't give a shit about Slayer now.
I know, and it's like I want to, because Slayer, you know, if you've been a Requiem fan for a long time, you'll know that when we did those Slayer shows, that's like for me, that's like my go-to like old school metal band. Like they're kind of like what Maiden is maybe for Mark or something. That's just like it reminds you of your childhood, good memories, that kind of thing.
And they were completely iconoclastic for. Like, nobody sounded like them.
Yeah.
They got signed to a major rap label.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it was crazy how big they got and the respect they got cross-genre from everybody.
And that they were so aggressive the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, they never compromised, especially during that, like, kind of
and up until
run.
Seasons, that's a fucking hell of a career right there.
Yep.
And you got a couple other good things at the end of that. But,
Sure.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing.
So Repentless, you know, what I hope is that it's a stepping stone towards something better down the road, because now you've brought in Bostaff, now you have Gary Holt permanently, you've worked out maybe some of the demons of the post traumatic stress of dealing with like a member that's passed away, and you can kind of like hopefully Carey's smart enough to listen to what Gary can bring to the table and what Paul can really do, because Paul has some amazing drum chops. He's not Dave Lombardo, but he's not Chop Liver either. He's a great drummer, you know. And so I'm hoping, like, you know, when you hear them do stuff like Atrocity, Atrocity Vendor, you know, has like the great destruction riff like at the very beginning, and then it goes from like this really inspired kind of destruction riff into something that's like more kind of substandard, fairly typical kind of like 2000s Slayer, God Hates Them All kind of stuff. So there's like these moments, and I don't know if that's like Gary Holt like injecting some energy at times, and then like Carrie kind of like is like, no, we're gonna do this because this is like what we do.
Because as far as I know, all that Gary did is put on solos. He didn't do any rhythm guitar,
and that's what I mean. And so it's like, hopefully, like Carrie recognizes that, but my fear is that Carrie's ego is so big that he doesn't have that counterweight anymore that he respects, that he'll actually like listen to.
I don't know. Gary is. They've known each other since they were kids.
Yeah, and that's, I hope.
So,
I'm hoping. You know, I want to be proven wrong. You know, but
I don't know if they have another record in them, to be honest.
Yeah, this could be it.
Because Tom's been pretty vocal about. He's like kind of wants to just like not do it for a while.
Yeah, I get that.
Every record's
after
5
the neck
years.
surgery and shit. Like, I mean, it's probably uncomfortable to tour, and he can't headbang anymore. He's just kind of like.
And it's like that's a lot.
Yeah, and they've had a good run. So I mean, if this is it, I'll be okay with it.
I mean, I would be fine with them not. You don't have to put out record. It's not the same old system. Like Carcass has been touring off Surgical Steel for like 4 years.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah,
if not
4 or 5
longer.
years.
Yeah.
So I mean, like that's fine. You don't. I don't need. It's not the old way where you deal with a label and you've got to put out a record every year, sometimes twice a year, and then tour on it. Like it's not that system anymore.
Sure.
Just write good music.
Yep.
And tour as much until people don't want to see you anymore.
Absolutely. So, well, we'll let you be the judge of this. I'm sure you've already heard Repentless, but we've decided to pick out the Piano Wire song. And You Against You. I think You Against You is probably the best song from start to finish. It's very aggressive. And then Piano Wire, just kind of in honor of Jeff, because it's the last song that he has co-writing credits on.
Yeah.
So enjoy Bullet to the Brain from Megadeth, Piano Wire from Slayer, and You Against You from Slayer's Repentless as well. And then we're going to close with a Anthrax song that we'll talk about when we come back.
The truth of humanity's far from insane. Its focus is cruel, its heartbreaking pain. As if I needed more reason to hate. A savage decision is not hard to make. Family and friends dare to threaten what's mine. Kill motherfuckers for crossing the line. Tighten the noose round my life and I choose murder and mayhem, 'cause I'm worse than you.
That was Zero Tolerance from Anthrax's For All Kings. Then we had a pair of Slayer songs, You Against You. Before that, Piano Wire from Slayer's Repentless. And then we started off with Bullet to the Brain from Megadeth.
Dystopia.
Yeah. So Zero Tolerance I snuck in there along with You Against You and Piano Wire because it kind of fits in there. What's that?
Good death cover.
Yeah, amazing symbolic cover in honor of speaking of fallen warriors, Chuck, you know. But no, that's a pretty inspired Anthrax song. That's the closest we said that they kind of came to like Among the Living and some of that kind of stuff in terms of
that
just
tempo and relentlessness.
Yeah, especially when you get to that midway point of that song where it kind of changes and gets into a completely different groove. You know? What did I write about that? Yeah, it feels very like 80s like Politica thrash, kind of like some of those 80s thrash metal bands like Nuclear Assault or something like that would get, you know. Obviously they're targeting religious extremism and political extremism and you know, the fact that this record came out January, February of 2016, it's kind of that's a very prophetic song in light of like Trump stuff, Aleppo, you know, like you name like all the shits at the fan, you know. But when they say what would your God say to that, motherfuckers? And you know, we're against extremism in politics, extremism in religion, like
just not extremism.
You know, I am fire. I am
totally
death.
for extremism in music.
We want as much extreme metal, exactly. Yeah. So, but I love like I am fire, I am death. That's very like what's the quote? I think it's the Robert Oppenheimer quote when he after he made the atomic bomb, Manhattan Project, he had some like crazy quote where he said something along those lines. Yeah. You know, where he's like, we've become gods. Like I'm.
It's like a Neil Armstrong kind of like. How do you fucking ever actually that just comes like? Have you been writing this down on your hand for 3 months? Or just certain prophetic things happen.
Exactly. So, but that's just that's a really emblematic of like how good this For All Kings record is, and I think I mentioned earlier in the show that this is more of a. That's probably the most thrashy song, along with like Defend, Avenge, and Evil Twin. Those are pretty like in your face kind of awesome thrash. But I think what really works so well for All Kings is like the other songs that are more anthemic, more like sing along.
They're letting Belladonna do something.
Yeah, he's at I would say he's at his absolute like peak that he's had as a vocalist on this whole record. Yeah. You know. You even mentioned, and it like kind of became apparent that I think I knew this subconsciously, that it's almost like Belladonna paid attention to some of the really good things that John Bush did vocally with the band, and like stole some of those and then added them to his own like Belladonna repertoire that he had in the 80s.
And it's not strain either.
No,
because you works. Listening to like 80s Anthrax, it always sounds like he had a horse in his throat.
Yeah,
just weird.
He was like maybe my least favorite of the big four vocalists in the 80s.
Oh, easily, he was my least favorite.
And now, like I look at him, and he might be like my number one right now, because Araya has kind of like lost some of his quality. James is pretty good. He's kind of returned to form.
I'd put James above.
And Dave is just Dave, you know. But I think from like a melodic standpoint, the things that he's doing, nobody can touch. From the big four right now.
But that's always the weird thing that made sense with Anthrax is that nobody's ever, any of these bands don't sound like anybody else, but Anthrax didn't sound like anybody at all in thrash.
Yeah, they had like this Brooklyn hardcore thing.
Hardcore shit, and then like a super melodic vocalist.
And then like a Judas Priest like vocalist or something on top.
Fucking weird.
It was kind of weird. So, but songs like, we won't have time to play them, but like Breathing Lightning is like, it's like beyond catchy.
Oh,
like
yeah.
If you've heard, it's just like...
And that's believe it or not, that's one of the complaints I've heard about this record is it's too anthemic and it's too catchy and it's overproduced.
That's silly. That's just crazy talk.
I can understand that point of view, but...
I can, but I don't... Have I gotten to the point where, in my old age, where like I don't mind when something just sounds really good? Like it just like feels good to like a metal record for just sounding catchy and sounding good. Especially a band that's earned it. It's not like they're coming out of nowhere.
To some people.
What's that?
It's a dirty word to some people.
I guess, but like you know me, I can be as raw as fuck or as like as like polished. Like I like my Blind Guardians and my Dark Thrones.
But do you think in 10 years this record's going to have the same kind of feelings around it?
I mean, I don't know. I go back and I go back and listen to it. Well, I mean, in comparison to everything else they've done, like the last 20 years leading up to this, I feel like it's a return to form. I mean, I like
their entire career.
I like worship this. Is that
worship music?
Worship music. Yeah, I keep
worship him. The Samael
worship it. I think that's what I keep thinking of Samael. I really liked that. I went to bat for that record a lot too. This is better. Well,
but, that was recorded. Basically written without Belladonna. Which I think this one, I'm sure he contributed vocal harmonies and stuff too.
Well, I just feel like too this record got way more lost in the shuffle than it should have, even though everybody I know really talked this record up pretty high, like Dystopia. Those are like the two, I think some of it might have to do with their visibility. Yeah. They toured so much in the last 2 years. I've seen them like 3 times in the last couple years. I saw them at Motorhead.
And I never went to see them.
Yeah.
I don't even remember who the fuck else they opened for.
Yeah, I just know they opened for Motorhead. That was the first time I'd seen Anthrax, actually.
Did they open for King Diamond?
Oh, no. It was it King Diamond that we saw him open up for? No, that was Exodus.
Motorhead, too.
No, it was Exodus that opened up for King Diamond.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. But I've seen them up more times than I've wanted to.
Huh.
But
and now I'm happy to see them. I don't know. But I mean, I don't know. You get songs like Breathing Lightning and Blood Eagle Wings. Those are more like melodic kind of thrash, more melodic metal. more sing-songy. I don't know.
I think the thing that I think might make people apprehensive about it a little bit is that this has the same kind of annoying stick in your head thing like pop music, like a bubblegum pop song.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's the line between that and that, you know.
And I guess, like, for me, like, you know, this debate comes up a lot when you talk about, like, Ghost or something like that.
Sure.
Like, I love feeling good listening to Ghost.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me just feel, like, happy to, like, have, like, these over-the-top things. I mean, like, when you hear Run to the Hills, like, it makes you feel good. Like, there's nothing wrong. And I think I think Anthrax with this record is entering more Iron Maiden territory, where they're just, like, they're big choruses, big everything. And they've kind of left some of the... I don't want to say they've left thrash, but they've transcended it. It's like they don't care what they're doing. They're just writing good songs now.
Well, really, it's a hard thing. What is thrash?
Yeah, I agree.
What is thrash now as opposed to what was thrash in the 80s?
But I also think, and we'll get into this probably with part 2 a little bit more, so I don't want to, like... But I think Anthrax probably, of all the big four thrash bands, has done a better job of transforming themselves. Sometimes
twice.
Yeah, they've done it like 2 or 3 times. I mean, you look at like I'm the Man. That was a very radical statement that they made, and then Bring the Noise, and then Sound of White Noise, and I mean, they don't give a fuck. That's kind of the New York kind of attitude I think that I respect about them. Like, they're just gonna do whatever they're gonna do, and some of it's gonna suck probably, and some of it's not.
They're the only big four band that I think did when they did Sound of White Noise.
Yeah,
like Exodus tried with Force of Habit.
Metallica
tried with Load. Like, everybody tried to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
They knew what to grab, and
for sure,
you know, bring in the old Metal Church vocalist. That's right, isn't it?
No, Armored Saint
vocalist, which Metallica was going to grab him back in the day. But to have that more modern sound, but it didn't come across as being contrived.
And I think that's what works with this, is it's got like a lot of those kind of elements, you know, and you got really inspired guitar playing from the Jonathan Donales. Is that what it is?
Or Donales. The old Shadows Fall guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I compared it to like Adrian Smith, like, solo wise, you know, the things he's doing, like the sort of shredding, melodic.
Beats the shit out of Danny Spitz, and some of the early Danny Spitz stuff is fine.
But he is.
But the guy that went over to Volbeat, Rob something or other, he was just kind of like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, he had some good stuff on that last record here and there, but it was inconsistent. You know? But
this guy's got a good identity. You can tell it's, you know, every time it comes in, he's got something to say.
Sure.
Each time.
And I think Benante and Bello, like, are really working, like, the bottom end, you know. I mean, I think Scott Ian, along with James, is like the best rhythm guitarist, like, for thrash metal that we'll ever... I mean, he's got a very specific, like Liam Neeson, a very specific set of skills. Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
He doesn't venture outside that, but he's, like, on the...
And you really hear, like, that rhythmic, like, undertone, not necessarily with Scotty, but with, like, Charlie and Frank in a song.
Scotty's a pretty percussive player, too.
Very much. There's like there's a Bo Diddley quality to, like, what they do, and that Bo Diddley saw every instrument as a rhythmic instrument.
Yeah,
like, he played guitar like a rhythm instrument, and that's like why Bo Diddley was so radical back in, like, 50s rock and roll stuff. But, like, you know, in Monster at the End, which is a song we're gonna sort of, you know, start to close with here in a moment, you know, you really hear a lot of really great bass work with, like, Frank Bello, and you often don't get a chance to hear great bass work outside of, like, Dee Dee Verney and Overkill, and, like, a few, like, choice moments here and there.
Like, Dee Dee Verney's one of the few bass players that I would listen to anything he's on, just hear his bass.
Just his bass stuff.
And he's not like a super technical player, but he's got such feel and attitude.
And to me, like, on Monster at the End, you get some Steve Harris kind of moments. Like, the way that Steve Harris, like, really, like is, like, woven into the fabric of all the guitar playing on a lot of, like, Iron Maiden stuff is, like, what I think Frank Bello brings to, like, this record in a lot of ways. So he's kind of, like, to me, one of the unsung heroes as well. He never really gets talked about. So we'll hear Monster at the End kind of at the to start things. Again, great. This song especially has great vocals in the pre-chorus and the chorus, very anthemic. And then we're going to end with For All Kings, which I wrote has an unfuckable with solo near the end. Just really fantastic. Very, like... is that the one that has kind of like the Wasted Years kind of moments to it?
Oh, geez,
there's one that we were listening to in here, and I'm trying to remember, but just really, like, incredible fretwork kind of stuff that really has, like, kind of a just the way that Iron Maiden does, like, I don't know what you would call that,
arpeggio
the
stuff,
arpeggio kind of stuff, or wherever it is. I'm kind of drawing a blank on it.
Either,
but anyways, we're neither of us are musicians. Yeah, so it's cool. That's what we'll say. So, I guess, it's up to you. Give us some feedback on which of the big four records you think kind of will stand the test of time. Kind of curious on your feedback. You can leave us comments on iTunes or hit us up on Twitter at Podcast Requiem or on Facebook, Mark Jason.
And if any of you have followed the pre-worship music stuff, post Stomp 242.
Stomp 242 is like the last Anthrax I knew
that
before.
Stuff in between, I heard intermittent bits of it. I don't know any of it.
Yeah.
If there's something that's great in there,
let us know,
because I don't have the time to sit there.
We were like talking about it, like we don't know, So and we're gonna get into that in part 2 of this, where we actually debate the long-term merits of the big four. So hopefully you dug this exploration of what they've been up to in kind of a new way. But now we're out to go back into the past a little bit with that, so it should be interesting. So let us know, give us some feedback. It's been kind of fun to get back into the realm of doing all this. We hope you enjoy some Monster at the end and For All Kings from Anthrax's For All Kings. So for that, I'm Jason,
and I'm Mark.